Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. Are very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching, and oh boy, do we have a busy Doctor Who Daily today. Welcome back to Big Mouth. Welcome back to the Doctor Who Daily. And if you're feeling charitable, please smash that subscribe button and that like button. And after the video, not now, but after the video, swim over to Twitter. Follow me on @MoviesTVMad, because at the moment it's the time to react and talk about Doctor Who, the most amazing concept, character, TV show in the world, or at least one of them. So welcome. So on today's show, we will be reacting to the official confirmation that Bradley Walsh will be leaving as Graham in Doctor Who this Christmas. We'll also be reading an article from Screen Rant connecting the end of time and the Timeless Children. We will then be reading a fascinating interview with Joe Martin, who's also played the Master, the Doctor in this season's Doctor Who, saying she was inspired with Peter Capaldi's version of the Doctor and modelled aspects of her Doctor with his. And finally, I'm going to be talking about how I feel about the Chris Chibnall era and what's going on with the divisive element of the fandom and the creative element editorially, what's going on with Doctor Who right now. We've got such a big show, we need to start now. Right. Doctor Who's Timeless Child twist may answer David Tennant's one lasting mystery. Does Doctor Who's recent Timeless Child reveal clear up a lingering mystery from the David Tennant era? It's been over a decade since the final voyage of the 10th Doctor in the End of Time, but for many fans those scars are still raw. The emotional climax of Tennant's TARDIS tenure saw the Doctor team up with John Sims' Master, as the duo prevented the Time Lords from escaping the sealed Time War and endangering 21st century Earth. The Doctor succeeded without succumbing to the he will knock 4 times warning, but couldn't outrun fate and ultimately sacrificed his present incarnation to save Wilfred Mott. The Doctor then embarked on a farewell tour of past companions. While the David Tennant era neatly rounded off Russell T Davies' time as the Doctor Who showrunner and mostly answered all of the questions raised, there was one remaining speck of ambiguity that came in. The End of Time itself, when the Time Lords arrive to confront the Doctor, they are joined by a woman played by Claire Bloom, who resisted Rassilon's plan and is now being shamed. This same mysterious figure was seen warning Wilfred in the build-up to his adventure with the Doctor, and she shared a lingering look with David Tennant's hero. That suggested a connection between the two. Davies later revealed that he cast Bloom with the intention she would play the Doctor's mother, something I didn't know that he confirmed actually. Since this isn't explicit on screen, however, the Time Lady could be Susan, the Doctor's daughter, Romana, or some other family member. I don't think so. Well, I suppose because it was never revealed on screen, she can be whoever you want her to be. That's what's so amazing about Doctor Who, really. The recent events of Doctor Who's Season 12 finale, The Timeless Children, put this mystery character in an entirely new context. Fans now know that the Doctor comes from another realm rather than Gallifrey. So the woman from the End of Time definitely isn't the mother of the Doctor, whose long-standing lead. Of Doctor Who's long-standing lead. Instead, the Timeless Child offers another potential identity for the Time Lady, Tecton Yoon. After the Doctor arrived in our world, Tecton Yoon was the one who took her back to Gallifrey and scientifically engineered her biology to create the Time Lord race. Tecton Yoon was an adoptive parent to the Doctor, was a high-ranking member of the Time Lord High Council, and could regenerate, all of which fits with the character the 10th Doctor sees in the End of Time. Not only is she a high-profile member of the Time Lords, she founded the Time Lords. Don't forget that. That's what Chibnall's saying in the finale. Important to be clear on that. On the other hand, the Doctor clearly has no memory of Tecton Yoon after being mind-wiped by the Division in the pre-Hartnell period. There's definitely a spark of recognition on David Tennant's face when he sees this woman in his final episode, and this moment perhaps rules out and Tecton Yoon being one and the same. Not necessarily. That is unless the 10th Doctor's recognition was subconscious, and the reason he didn't reveal her identity to Wilfred was simply because he couldn't remember. Nevertheless, the Timeless Children throws out Russell T Davies' preferred idea, and the woman is now most likely to be an adoptive parent the Doctor grew up with after working for the division, unless Chibnall, Moffat and Davies worked together with this from the very beginning. Don't forget, Chris Chibnall has been involved with Doctor Who and Torchwood for a very long time. Many Doctor Who fans likely thought this remaining Tennant mystery would never be revisited, but whether by accident or design, the Timeless Child arc forces viewers to consider it once more. Similarly, Chris Chibnall's huge canon expansion also explains the oft-discussed Morbius Doctor's plot hole, an old Tom Baker episode that suggested other Doctors came before William Hartnell. However, Season 12 creates inconsistencies faster than it solves them, such as Ruth's TARDIS being a police box and Clara not seeing the older Doctors when she entered Eleven's time stream. Fortunately, the mysterious Time Lady in the End of Time benefits from the Timeless Child rather than being contradicted by it, since a definitive answer was never provided at the time. So that's an interesting article. Right, let's be clear here. You can't attack Chibnall because of what Clara saw or didn't see, because Chibnall never was running the show then and never came up with the idea of the Timeless Children or the Timeless Child, right? And the stream that she's gone into is actually the Doctor's memories as well. And as the Doctor's memories have been wiped, then you can't expect her to see the Ruth Doctor and the Timeless Child, yada, yada, yada. But do I believe that the woman, the mysterious woman played by Claire Bloom in The End of Time, and I can't say her name, Tecton are the same person? Absolutely. I think they're absolutely the same person. And actually, Chibnall has connected the dots very cleverly there. So I do like that element. I do like this article. And I do mainly agree with it. Yes, a very interesting interview with Jo Martin. And Jo Martin says her new Doctor is influenced by Peter Capaldi. This really excited me yesterday, and I really wanted to talk about this on the Doctor Who Daily because I think all fans will want to know about this. The surprise new version of the Time Lord says she thinks there's some similarities between their incarnations, and even her costume includes callbacks to the 12th Doctor. Very, very interesting. When Doctor Who fans turned in for their latest series, they weren't expecting to meet a new version of the sci-fi drama's lead character. But when Jo Martin's new fugitive Doctor was unveiled in episode 5, they soon had a whole new regeneration to fit into their heads. But now Martin has suggested that her Doctor may have been more familiar to viewers than they realised, with her take on the character notably similar to another recent lead performance in the role. What I quite like is she can be a bit grumpy and a bit moody. Interesting, yeah. This Dr. Martin told Doctor Who magazine, a little like Capaldi maybe. She's got an edge, a dark side to her, as well as being cheeky and charming, and she doesn't really have a filter. Yes, in Martin's head, her Doctor exists somewhere on the continuum with Peter Capaldi's famous, irresistible, but still kind-hearted 12th Doctor who starred in Doctor Who from 2013 to 2017. And in keeping with the crossover, the new Doctor's costume even included a nod or two to the 12th Doctor's costume. I'm a huge fan of Peter Capaldi too, Martin said. There were a few nods to Capaldi's Doctor's outfit within my costume, actually. Brilliant. Well said, Joe. I thought that was really clever and the right thing to do for the kind of Doctor that I was trying to create. Wow. Ray Holman worked so hard. He's a genius designer, he is. Holman, for his part, admits he did include an explicit Capaldi callback, noting that the trousers and boots worn by Martin in the role are a mirror of his. Joe wears them just like Peter Capaldi used to wear them. I made her, he laughed. I said to Joe, Peter used to wear his boots with his black trousers like this. However, Capaldi's Doctor wasn't the only form of regeneration to get a nod in the new look. I wanted a little references to existing Doctors in the costume, although I only decided what these should be once Jo Martin was cast and I talked to her. Holman told Doctor Who magazine, because the first Doctor I ever designed properly from head to foot was Matt Smith, I wanted some kind of tweed. Both the waistcoat ended up being Scottish tweed. I was really happy with that. The coat was a period cut coat, which is a nod to some of the older classic series Doctors too. In other words, Martin's fugitive Doctor fits in with the whole pantheon of Time Lords past. Makes sense. Very, very interesting. I mean, the interview you can find fully in the Doctor Who magazine. I haven't got that to hand, but that's what we're talking about here. Now, why I'm reading this to you and why I think this is very definitive and interesting, these are very interesting noises because Peter Capaldi is a very popular Doctor. So all of a sudden, you've got Joe publicly as this Doctor we never knew and a very controversial version of the Doctor. But I haven't spoken to a Doctor Who fan who doesn't like her irritation. And we've not really seen much of her. And people admitting that they prefer her to Jodie's Doctor. Now, what's interesting is I speak to a lot of people who don't like Jodie's Doctor at all and who adore Jodie's Doctor. And both say the sooner Jo is the full-time Doctor, the better. That's very interesting. And of course, on a human level, that's not very nice for Jodie. But unfortunately, for me, in a way, she has been written to fail. She has been underdeveloped. And I'll talk more about that at the end. But basically, the underlining theme here is that she's coming out publicly saying, her and this designer basically are saying they wanted to connect her Doctor to other Doctors. What do I think this means is that sooner rather than later, Jo Martin will be the full-time Doctor. Now, of course, this is interesting if it happens because normally we don't know who the Doctor's going to be till like a few months before the regeneration and before the other Doctor's exit is announced as well. So how will this happen? Will Jodie's Doctor and Jo's Doctor intermerge in a very different visual regeneration? I think so. This is going to be totally different. We still don't know where Jo's Doctor comes in. Now, everyone's guessing that she's a pre-Hartnell Doctor. Everyone's guessing that she may fit in just after Troughton and just before Pertwee. But my thought keeps on going to her being a future Doctor. When I look at her costume, she looks like a really futuristic Doctor. And I know she doesn't remember the Sonic and things like that. But maybe she's had a further mind wipe. We don't know. She could even be the Doctor after Jodie. Or she could be a prequel Doctor. That would be very interesting. I am not opposed to new things, you see. And I just think with all the divisiveness I see on this show now between the fans and the kind of editorial element of it, because I think there's something else I want to discuss at the end of this video, but I think there's a cure, there's a compromise here. And that compromise is Jo Martin. Now, we know that it's been announced that Jodie will be back for Series 13. But will she? That's the question now. I do go on the comment threads of the official Doctor Who accounts, BBC America and the UK one, Doctor Who Official. And of course, there's a lot of negative comments in there. But there's also a lot of positive comments in there. So how I would feel really is that Jo Martin is perfect. I liked her in Fugitive of the Judoon, especially once she became the Doctor. I liked the way her character was talking to Jodie's Doctor. And although I have a theory that Jo's character may actually be Tecte Yoon, I will get that name right eventually, right? Fabulous name. I love it. Thank you, Chris, for giving that name so it can come out of my mouth. And that sometimes I'm going to get it wrong. So I do have that theory, but I am totally fine with Jo being the Doctor, right? So I do feel she's the next Doctor. I absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind about that. She's there. There's so many theories behind her. And I just think this is a Doctor people are going to embrace, mostly, right? So now, this morning, it was confirmed on Radio 2. I was listening to Radio 2. I can get it here in Cyprus. And it was announced that Bradley Walsh will be starring in a brand new ITV drama. It was also confirmed that Bradley Walsh, as Graham, will be exiting the TARDIS in the Christmas special Resurgence of the Daleks. So how do I feel about that? I will shed more than a few tears. But why do we love Graham so much? Because we love Brad. We love Bradley Walsh. He's a lovely, kind, empathetic man who's funny. And that's why me and my dad won't miss an episode of The Chase or Breaking Dad. Bradley Walsh is loved by the whole nation. But Bradley Walsh basically is Graham. There's no caricature there. And this is a symbolic theme with the Chibnall era, isn't it? The underdeveloped companions, the underdeveloped Doctor, but then we get a wonderfully developed Master played by Sacha Dhawan. And I still don't understand how we get a great Master and a not so great bunch of companions and Doctor. It's really sad. Now, I did speak to the BBC. When I heard Bradley was being cast as Graham, I was really inspired by what him and Chris Chibnall did on Law and Order UK, where Bradley Walsh gives this beautiful performance of a caricature that's nothing like Brad. That's nothing like Bradley Walsh. And I spoke to them and I said, how about if this character has got this survivor syndrome, right, where he thinks he's a cancer survivor because of fate, and he's a man of faith, and the Doctor's a character of science, and they clash because the Doctor doesn't believe in fate, and he believes he's found the Doctor for a reason, and there's clashes within each adventure, a bit like, I suppose, Sam Tyler in Life on Mars and Gina Hunt, the two different mentalities, crossing swords and making it compelling television. Now, they never did that. Now, when I was kind of saying this to them, I was saying he could be, because it inspired me watching the clash between John Locke and Jack in Lost, because Locke was a man of faith who was disabled before he crashed on a flight Oceanic 815, but then we later find in a massive reveal that he was paralysed, and he's on this plane and he crashes because he masquerades as an able-bodied person. He doesn't tell them the truth so he can go to Australia on a walkabout, and they tell him he can't do it, and he screams, "Don't tell me what I can't do." And I wanted Graham's character to be a lot like this, and I think that would have been very interesting. Now, they obviously rejected my concept, and of course, who am I? I just gave them a suggestion, and that's fine and that's okay. But instead, we got nothing. So for me, although I'm sad that I won't be seeing Bradley on Doctor Who anymore, he has to go because he hasn't been developed. We got this little development in season 11 with Grace, which I think again was a missed opportunity. You've got this cancer sufferer who marries this woman who heals him back to health, and instead of the cancer sufferer dying, he survives and his nurse dies. The irony and the potential for emotional, compelling storytelling is there, and it was underdeveloped again and wasn't used. So for me, it's just very, very sad, and it looks like Ryan will leave as well, although nothing's been confirmed about that. But it's obvious if one leaves, the other will leave, and we're going to be left with Yaz and the Doctor, and I hope they develop that relationship, as I've said on these videos again. So that's official confirmation that Bradley Walsh, aka Graham, will be leaving his role on Doctor Who this Christmas. And it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. I mean, a lot of people saying his cancer could come back, he could die. I personally think he's just going to decide to stop. And because you know how the actress from the Sarah Jane Adventures and him clicked in Ascension of the Cybermen, I think maybe they'll set up house, maybe in the TARDIS house or something like that, and maybe Graham will live with them, and maybe they'll travel themselves in that TARDIS. Who knows? I don't think you're going to get to anything emotionally or compelling here, but it'll be the end of the Graham and Ryan story. Well, it looks like we are coming to the end of the rumours of Torchwood coming back, as John Barrowman has confirmed he will play a Scottish surgeon full-time in Holby City. Now, which would basically mean if he's working full-time on Holby City, he can't work full-time on Torchwood. Now, obviously, there's still an avenue for him to reoccur on Doctor Who, which he will be this Christmas. Actually, very interesting. There's a Doctor Who account, an unofficial one, that was putting two and two together on Twitter saying when Mandip and Jodes were doing the Marshmallow comp, and we could hear him when we saw a close-up of John being there, and they were wearing different clothes. He was basically saying that means he was on the set of the resurgence of the Daleks, right? So John Barrowman quote tweets it with a heart and thumbs up. For me, that's as much confirmation as you need. So John Barrowman, Captain Jack, is back this Christmas on Doctor Who, and nothing is more exciting than that. Captain Jack's an awesome character. He was amazing in Fugitive of the Judoon as well. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing him again. So finally, let's finish off with what's going on within the Doctor Who fandom and this war of words we're having with the production team, with Chris Chibnall. It seems to me, it seems to me that you either have to be with this era or against this era. Sorry, there's no in between, right? The thing is with me, I neither hate this era totally or totally love it. This era has flaws. I've already spoken about the underdevelopment of the Doctor and her companions and the lack of characterization and characteristics within the characters, which makes them so bland, ordinary and uninteresting, and the Doctor should never be uninteresting. Now, I've spoken about that, so that's one of my issues, but I'm one of the people who thought The Timeless Children was really good, and I enjoyed the ascension of the Cybermen too. I think the expansion of the canon is really, really interesting, but let me be clear, this cannot be a situation where Chris Chibnall doesn't touch on this again. This has to be explored. I want to see flashbacks. I want to see Jo Martin's Doctor again. Hopefully a little bit in season 13 and in the future as a full-time Doctor, unless something dramatic really happens and she's announced for season 13 full-time. I do think that interview in the Doctor Who magazine where she's saying she was trying to have elements of Peter Capaldi's Doctor, that's a hint that she's going to be the full-time Doctor sooner rather than later. So I am not angry with what he's done with the Timeless Children. I also feel with the Morbius Doctors things, everyone's saying that Chibnall has made that canon. Chris Chibnall hasn't made that canon. The Morbius Doctors have already appeared on Doctor Who. It's already been hinted towards a pre-Hartnell bunch of Doctors. Nobody loses their shit. Now, all of a sudden, because Chris Chibnall makes it canon, Chris Chibnall is telling you this pre-Hartnell concept has already been hinted towards. So why do you hate what he's actually done? You know, that's an interesting thing. I think it's about talking about what we love and what we don't like. But I can't say I totally hate the Chibnall era or I totally love it. There are definite kind of flaws within it, and there's some great things within it. But there are issues, and there has been an explosion within the fandom, and I see it on Twitter. I see it all around YouTube. I'll give you an example, right? The other day I was watching this YouTube channel, can't remember who he was, and he goes, here's my theory about the Timeless Child, but first, if you go on those comments and you start saying you don't like Chris Chibnall's era or Jodie Whittaker's Doctor or moan about the Timeless Child, I'm going to delete your comments. No. You're a prominent YouTuber, mate. You're behind you. You've got all these models of Doctor Who, all your DVD and Blu-rays. You are saying you are one of us, that you are a Doctor Who fan. What you don't do is say, you can't say this and you can't say that. It's authoritarian and it's wrong. And you actually deserve to lose all your subscribers. Every Doctor Who fan who watches my videos or any other videos has every right not to agree with me, to downvote my video. If you agree with me, give me a thumbs up or comment down below, you know, and politely, right, tell me why you don't like what I like. That's fine. But to tell people that their comments will be deleted if they're anti-Whittaker, anti-Chibnall or anti-The Timeless Child is absolutely ridiculous. But this is where we are now. And as I said, when I started this conversation, we're in a position now where we are expected to either support the Chibnall era or not to support the Chibnall era. The fandom menace are a big problem because they have an agenda. Their agenda is that they don't like the fact that a woman was cast as the Doctor. And if Jo Martin is officially the brand new Doctor, they will start going in on her because she's a woman of colour. We know that. But so far, all we've seen is a great caricature on the Doctor, right? And as she said herself, she has got elements of personality and character, which is something she's got over Jodie's version, because Jodie's version is an empty shell. She doesn't feel like the Doctor. because she's been underdeveloped, and that's the problem with her. And that's going to be the continuing theme within her era, because she does come back in season 13 and it is just her and Yaz in the TARDIS. There has to be a situation where there is fleshing out these characters and they actually have a proper dynamic. She barely speaks to her fan. She barely has a relationship with the fan. And, you know, we've seen it with companion stories, even in the classic era, that there are dynamics there. There are close feelings. And there's nothing there. And that's really been the flaw within what Chris Chibnall has underdeveloped. But as I say, season 12 has been an improvement on season 11. But there's still a lot of improvement to be made. Now, we know the soundtrack's been released, record-breaking pre-orders for the Steelbook Blu-ray season 12 as well. So people are making Doctor Who a hell of a lot of money. And that's why Piers Wenger said it's not going anywhere. It's a really profitable enterprise for the BBC, and it will continue to do so. And as Piers said himself, it's not going anywhere. But there are issues within this era, and I don't know how long Chris Chibnall's planning onto running this show. Now, as much as the fandom menace are to blame for this divisive situation, Chris Chibnall has to take responsibility, and the BBC. I believe Chris Chibnall should come out and say, listen, I'm a fellow Doctor Who fan. The last thing I want is to upset any of you, break your hearts or make you angry. We are all Doctor Who fans, and we see Doctor Who all see different ways. If you were running the show, you would do different things that maybe I wouldn't agree with, but I am not trying to hurt anyone. I am just trying to tell my own story. I am one of you. Maybe like the fandom menace and the other people who hate him and hate what he's doing still wouldn't kind of fall their anger towards him, but at least it's a coming together. But at this moment, Chris Chibnall is in his ivory tower. He's basically saying, this is what I'm doing. I'm protected. This show will carry on no matter who's watching it, right, and who's not watching it. That's the situation. Chris Chibnall can do what he wants. He doesn't see the need to explain what he's trying to do to Doctor Who fans, trying to do with the show to Doctor Who fans. And I think that's a shame, because I feel if he did come out and just explain that he's not doing this to hurt anyone and this is just the way he wants to run the show, and that's perfectly fine. But this is, you've got someone in their ivory tower, this is the way we're going to do it, and anyone who complains is wrong. That's not the case here. I have my opinions, you have your opinions. I believe there's some very good things about this era, especially in season 12. This arc, the Roof arc and the Timeless Child arc, are very brilliant, and they do expand on the Doctor's canon, and that's very interesting to me. And I believe season 13, as I've done a video already, I think we could have flashbacks to some of the stuff the Doctor did for the Division, some dark deeds that won't sit well with the Doctor, some more reveals. So it could be very exciting and interesting. And of course, it could be revealed later on that the Doctor actually isn't the Timeless Child. We don't know. But I think it's a case of everyone being able to put their opinions, whether they love it or they hate it, and without someone saying you're wrong because you hate it or you're wrong because you love it. I'm quite sure that the people who say totally love it and the people that say totally hate it, the haters probably like elements but are not willing to kind of say that, and the people who totally love it have the same issues that I have. Because when you compare it to Eccleston, Tennant, Smith and Capaldi, it's not the same. It doesn't have to be the same, but kind of Eccleston and Capaldi and Smith and Tennant, they were a go and get them Doctor. They had personality. I am the Doctor. You know, they were centre stage. This Doctor has barely got a heartbeat, has barely got any characteristics apart from liking custard creams. There's got to be more to a Doctor than that. The Doctor has got to be the life and soul of the party. And this is something that Chris must look at and change, and must not be stubborn about it. If you want to rewrite canon, if you want to rewrite the law, you are the showrunner. Whether we agree with it or not, that's entirely up to you. But at the end of the day, the Doctor has to be the most interesting character on the show. Why make the Master so awesome but underdevelop the Doctor? It makes zero sense. And that's something, Chris, you desperately have to look at. So I want you to comment down below. Please like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more Doctor Who Daily. See you then.